This is a production of Cornell University.
I would love to welcome everyone to Cornell University's New York State Agricultural Experiment Station, part of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Cornell. My name is Christine Smart, and I'm the director of the School of Integrative Plant Science. Our hope for today is actually to have everyone, we're going to introduce sort of the Hemp team at Cornell, at least those of us that are here. And then we'll have some folks describing some of the research that's happening. But my goal is really to have folks out in the field looking at the hemp and interacting with our hemp team. So once you know what folks do, if you have a question about the overall project, to be honest, I'm pretty much the administrator of the project, and a lot of the other folks here are doing some of the research. So if you have questions about economics, you can talk to Judd, who you'll meet. If you have questions about the varieties we have here, we have experts on that. And so I always think it's fun to be out and walking around the plants and asking questions there. So that's our goal. So you're up. I don't actually have a copy of the agenda on me. But I'm going to go with
why don't you start with
the variety trial?
With Jamie.
All right. So what we have out here is a variety trial, and the trial is planted at 6 different locations, 4 near the Ithaca campus and 2 here up in Geneva. And Jamie Crawford is here. Come on up, Jamie. She works for Don Vyans, who is one of the co-leads on the project, and she'll talk briefly about the trial. And there's a handout. There's a handout. If you don't have that, we can pass those around. So, Jamie.
So like I said, I work for Don Vyans, who was very excited to be here to talk to all of you today. But when we first got started on this project, it was sort of an adventure. I can't say that much. But we were able to line up the 17 different varieties that you'll see out here in the trials today. So you'll want to grab a handout. I got here a little late, I apologize for that. So on these handouts, you'll see there's 13 different grain and dual purpose varieties. And then we've got 4 different fiber varieties, particularly fiber varieties that we're testing. On the front of the page, there's a little bit of information on the different trial sites and planting dates and the sorts of soils that are in those locations. So there's everything from very well drained, so there's like a gravelly field and a sandy field, and then we've got some somewhat poorly drained spots that were planted also. So just to sort of see the full spectrum of how hemp can farm in all of these different locations. So for our trials, we planted them in 4-foot by 20-foot blocks, and each variety is replicated 4 times in each trial, so we'll be able to get some good yield estimates from that. We aimed for 3/4 inch planting depth in all of our locations, and except for one where we know the soil packs really tightly, so farmers are going to want to know something about the soil where they're planting it, and that's what they're going to have to use as a basis for your planting depth. And even at that 1/2 inch planting depth, we had poor establishment because we had a cool snap right after planting and rain. So if you guys have planted corn before, you don't want to plant it before a cold snap, right? But hemp is even more sensitive than that. So we had good establishment in all of our trials except for the one where it got down into the 40s with a cold rain afterwards. And so our first trial we had about an average of 12 plants per square foot, and then in the second one it was closer to 5. They were only planted 5 days apart, but that 3-day window after planting is really important. So Emilia's going to tell you a little bit about our other trials around the state. You can see the one behind you, which is looking very nice. But she'll tell you about some of our other ones, and then we'll pass it.
All right, so I've been...
Emilia, why don't you introduce yourself? Sorry.
Yes, so I'm Emilia. I'm the the hemp research intern this summer. So with the help of our student employees, I've been collecting data on all of our trials in Ithaca, East Ithaca, and Freeville on a weekly basis. These data include notes on height, stand, and flowering. As you can see, all of our varieties are in bloom now, even the fiber varieties, which have been bred to bloom much later in the season. Something that I've noticed is that the monoecious varieties, which are the plants that have male and female plants, or male and female parts on the same plant, flower later than the dioecious varieties. Monoecious varieties also seem to have a slower but much steadier and more linear growth rate than the dioecious varieties. The dioecious varieties have had a growth spurt earlier in the season, which has declined since they started to flower. This pattern of growth has created major differences in height between the monoecious and dioecious varieties. The monoecious varieties on pretty much all of our trials are between 1 and 3 feet taller than the dioecious varieties. Something that we've also learned through doing these trials so far is that establishment is crucial. Hemp seedlings seem to be very wimpy. And so it seems that soil type and planting date may have a strong effect on establishment. As Jamie mentioned, our first trial was planted just 5 days earlier than our East Ithaca trial, but the establishment difference is huge, and on average, our first trial is almost 2 feet taller than the East Ithaca trial. Perhaps the planting date didn't matter as much because it's only a 5-day difference, but the plants are much shorter and they're now having trouble out competing the weeds. The East Ithaca trial also didn't get the 78 additional pounds of fertilizer, which may have a strong effect. It seems that hemp is a very heavy eater. And our first trial was also planted following alfalfa. Alfalfa was planted there for years, so that may also make a huge difference. Our late Ithaca trial, the second trial on the McGowan field, was planted just the day after the first grain trial here in Geneva. But on average is about 7 inches taller. We're not sure whether that's because of soil type or amount of rain or something else. We plan on combining the grain and dual-purpose trial in Ithaca sometime late this summer and into the fall when 70% of the seeds are mature, which will be very soon, it seems. And the fiber trial will be harvested between flowering and seed set, which will probably happen sometime next week.
Are your notes posted on the website somewhere? Those little nuggets?
Not yet.
Okay.
We don't have any sort of definitive data yet. So these are some of the observations that we've made, but when we have something more solid, that'll be there.
And when you said fertilizer, was it triple or what you put on there?
We started out with 10, 20, 20. That was our initial, and then it was some ammonium sulfate.
So in this trial, 30 pounds per acre of the 10, 20, 20, and then after they were up, 60 pounds of ammonium sulfate.
And that's consistent with all the different locations or just here?
That's consistent with almost all of the locations.
And soil?
We have another trial on another farm here in Geneva, and we put triple 19, incorporated that at planting time.
And was it based on soil tests? You're trying to balance everything out? That's why, or were you doing different fertilizers for the part of the research?
Now,
So why don't you repeat the question?
okay, sorry. Let me introduce myself. I'm Larry Smart. I'm a professor and Geneva program leader in the horticulture section at the School of Integrative Plant Science, and I also hold a joint appointment in plant breeding. So the question was about fertility, and for this initial set of trials, we wanted to keep it fairly simple, so we tried to standardize the fertilization across.
Gotcha.
That would certainly be an important topic that we want to look at next year.
And the Freeville trial is organic.
Oh,
On organic
Freeville is
soil.
organic.
So that's straight manure when you're saying organic?
Yeah, there's no
It's on certified organic ground.
But the only fertilizer that'd be on there is manure. Or no manure.
Or fish emulsion.
Yeah, or compost.
Or compost.
Cover crops.
Yeah. And let me also say that Jen Gilbert Jenkins at Morrisville is doing fertilization trials this year. So I just want to talk a little bit about how the governor and commissioner has inspired me to have a midlife crisis here. Although I did buy a Miata convertible this spring, so that contributed.
Note my eye roll.
At that point.
So I've been working for 20 years on willow bioenergy crops, which you can see over there. That's a 2-year-old stand of willow. But in March, we held a hemp summit that the lieutenant governor attended on the Ithaca campus, where she announced a $400,000 research grant to Cornell. And I thought that's great. We have a very strong multidisciplinary team, and we'll be able to get some good research done here over this year and next year. And we were gearing up for that, planting all these trials. And then in the beginning of June, the governor said, well, we need more than just a few variety trials. We need thousands of acres of hemp in New York State. We want to be a leader in the country in hemp production. And those of us on the hemp team at Cornell said, we'll do the best we can. And we started working together with Tim Sweeney and Jackie Czub and Chris Loeb and Steve McGrattan at Ag and Markets and the commissioner. And we were able to secure a $900,000 grant through Empire State Development. That contract, just to give you an idea of the timeline, that contract was signed on June 16th. Janie and her colleague Julie Hansen in Ithaca worked very hard with Valley Bio in Ontario to order more than 51,000 pounds of seed from Valley Bio of the cultivar Anka, which you see here in the trial. And then we worked together with Ag and Markets to line up growers, and some of those growers are here today. Mike Gardenier from Farm Fresh First has planted nearly 600 acres of hemp. Dan Spoth is here from East Amherst, and they will have 120 acres planted here by the weekend, hopefully. And in total, we will have planted 1,700 acres of this variety across 25 different farm sites. So I have a handout here just summarizing that. Our main aim of that project is to get growers inspired and also to inspire the markets for hemp. And to send the message that New York is into hemp in a big way, with strong support from our academic institutions, Cornell and our SUNY colleagues. We will get some data on establishment methods, because all these growers have used different seeders. One thing we standardized was the seeding rate at 30 pounds per acre, although we got 3 different seed lots which have different germination rates. So that's one of the issues with hemp that Alan Taylor's going to talk about, is the variability in germination rates and seedling vigor. Some of our growers are doing some no-till planting. Some of them, one of our growers planted with an onion planter. Some of our growers are harvesting hemp baby greens, which is becoming quite an item, apparently. Some of them will, I think, be able to combine their fields and will be able to measure yields on a fairly large scale. But some of the fields are still to be planted, and those fields are effectively planted for cover crop at this point. That's where we stand with the hemp farmer research trials. We also have Reid from Cooperative Extension, and we have a team of 8 or 10 folks now spread across the state to help support those farmers and to learn more about hemp so that we have a strong support network as we move forward into the future.
Judd?
Sure.
Can you introduce yourself, Judd, or do you want me to do that for you?
No,
And actually, after you're finished, maybe if we could just have the extension folks that are here introduce themselves.
Sure. Okay. Thanks,
Thank you,
Chris.
Judd.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Judson Reid.
I'm with a Cornell Cooperative Extension team called Harvest New York that tends to look at new emerging crops, emerging markets, and do a lot of work post-harvest in terms of analyzing value chains for New York farmers. And so industrial hemp being a new crop really fit into that, the type of work that we do. So a colleague of mine, Cheryl Fair, who works out of our Erie County office, put together a report, an economic report on the potential of industrial hemp in New York State. This is available. It's on the table where you signed in, and I encourage you to grab that on your way out today. What we tried to do is look at what is the potential of industrial hemp for New York farmers in terms of what is the return per acre. And to do that, we needed to begin to look at what is the yield per acre, what is the price received, and what are the input costs. And the first thing you'll notice if you look at our report is that there's not a lot of data out there. Some from different provinces in Canada, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, and then just a few states as well. Yield per acre, somewhere around 1,000 pounds possibly, but I've got to believe that's going to be higher too if we can begin to get our seeds earlier. So that was really more of a regulatory issue than an agronomic issue, just getting those seeds. So I'm a little concerned that any data that you look at from 2017 doesn't truly reflect the total potential of the crop. If we were able to get this ahead of time and get it in the ground earlier, I imagine that yield is going to be a lot higher. The other thing we have to look at when it comes to yield is what are we talking about? Are we talking about fiber? Are we talking about seed? What is the potential market of that seed? And that's going to influence our economics quite a bit. Since this is a new crop, there's a lot of interest in other potential uses of it, and Larry mentioned baby greens as well. So using this as a salad component, perhaps grown inside of greenhouses. And so I know there's some commercial farmers that are looking at this now in the Mohawk Valley. And I think in 2018, leveraging some of the funds that the governor announced on that second announcement of funding, we're probably going to start looking at trialing hemp as a baby green inside of some greenhouses in Geneva and Ithaca. And hopefully we'll have production information on that soon. We also need to explore what's the legality of that, of growing this out as a baby green and selling it to a restaurant. I have to say, this is the most interesting backdrop I've ever had. So if I grow a bunch of baby green hemp and then sell it to whatever consumer, that's the sort of thing we want to explore and make sure that people understand that they're navigating those markets properly. Anything else I should say, people I work with? There's production specialists here as well that have more agronomic knowledge. Some of those people are Mike Hunter from Jefferson County. I see Mike Standard someplace as well. There's Mike. Who else am I missing? Janice is here, right? Janice Stakey? Janice. Any other production cooperative extension people I should mention?
And Peter's here from CCE.
Peter Landry, that's our boss. Is Kitty here? Okay. So one of the things that Harvest New York wants to do is understand better the profitability of this crop. And to do that, we need to understand what are the yields and the prices received from New York farmers. So if you're growing hemp this year, you might expect to hear from Cheryl Fair, again, who I work with, or Lindsay Pacho, who I also work with at Harvest New York, to try to understand the market better. What are the prices received so that we can begin to create some transparency in the value chain. I think one of the real potentials for this crop is we can grow it. There's probably a lot of other people who grow it well too, but are we going to have some sort of competitive advantage with locally based markets, locally New York-based processors? And it looks like there's some very good news on that. So I'll stop there. Chris or Larry? Who's next?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We're talking about the economics. Are you guys going to post the prices you guys paid for the various seeds anywhere?
Yeah, I would say we would. So what we would do is probably update this document with 2017 data, as much real data as we can get from farmers.
people such as yourself, as much economic data we can get, and then update this document.
So should I divide 900,000 by 50,000? Did you spend all 900,000 on upward version?
So the question is, what was that budget of the 900,000? So these growers are being compensated by the acre. Again, we fixed the seeding rate at 30 pounds per acre, so I gave them the exact right amount of seed for their target acreage. So they're being compensated $400 per acre, less the cost of seed, not to exceed $50 per acre.
So you got
That
the
was
seed.
the word.
You got the seed for $2.
We got the seed for $1.98 a pound. Yep, from ANCA, including shipping from Ontario.
Good job.
So let me introduce Professor Gary Bergstrom in Pathology and Plant-Microbiology.
Thanks, Larry. Good to see everybody this morning. So I'm a member of the pest team, if you will, and that includes Elson Shields in entomology. I don't think Elson could make it today. My laboratory is very interested in trying to look ahead to some of the infectious disease problems that we may encounter, that I'm sure we will encounter. Jamie Cummings here and Kevin Myers are with my group, and we are looking forward to working with many of you trying the crop in commercial production to help you out with diagnosing problems. I attended at our professional plant pathology meetings last week. There was a special session on hemp and cannabis general diseases, and one of the things that we heard is that there's this myth that there are no pest problems on cannabis, and that is quite untrue. In fact, what I heard from colleagues in Kentucky, Indiana, and some other states that have been maybe working on this a little longer than us, that there's been kind of an explosion of realizing pest problems. And down the road, as we increase the acreage and the intensity, we will have a number of things to deal with. And I think as the course of the morning goes on here, if you don't know already, because of the status of this, is it really a crop sort of idea, or is it a Schedule I drug, depending on which agency you're talking to? There are no registered pesticides for this crop. So in that sense, we're all going to be looking at organic production in at least the initial years of this. And so that does present some problems, some challenges to us, and we'll learn about that together. It means that we'll need to work on some cultural practices at the beginning, things like the sequencing of crops. We want to avoid crops that have a similar spectrum of diseases. One that we're somewhat concerned about in New York State because of our rotations is white mold, sclerotinia white mold. Because if we're in rotation with things like soybean and a number of our vegetable crops, we already have issues with that. And so we know that hemp's quite susceptible to that. But and the other thing I learned from this symposium last week, that the spectrum of problems on the greenhouse grown, like for the baby greens, is almost completely different spectrum of problems than what we encounter in production in the field. So we need to be attuned to that as well. So I'm not going to belabor a lot of Latin names with you. There are any number of pests that we're going to be on the lookout for, and just want you to know that we're here to serve and work with you on diagnosing and learning together how we can best manage some of those problems. So, thank you.
Alan? Alan, you're up for introducing yourself.
Welcome, and it's good to see quite a turnout that we have here this morning. We had just 2 weeks ago the Ithaca, the first hemp field day there, and had about an equal turnout. So I really appreciate the interest.
Can you introduce yourself, Alan? Sorry.
And curiosity on this crop. So who am I? And this is for me to introduce myself. My name's Alan Taylor. I'm a faculty here at the Experiment Station, professor in seed science and technology. So my involvement in this project is really looking at seed quality aspects, starting from seed testing of the different lines and varieties that we see out here, but also to go further into the research, applied research of developing some seed enhancements. But I want to say, as we're really beginning this work, is really to talk about seed quality and what does that mean, just from the how do we define the seed quality? Those of you that are not really familiar with agronomic crops and seed quality, there's really two components. One is the germination. We would all expect, obviously, the seeds have to germinate. But the second part is called the purity. And the purity of a seed lot is we really just want, say, when you open up that bag of Anka to plant on your farm, you want to just have seeds of that particular variety. What else could be there? There could be other crop seeds. There can be weed seeds, particularly noxious weed seeds, may be present. And so if those weed seeds are there, you're also planting weed seeds in your farm. And then finally just inert matter, which is really just trash material, things like that. So there are some standards. First of all is how, as we've had to import seeds from all these trials are coming from two main companies, seed companies up in Canada, and the rest from Europe. Learning more about the Canadian system is there are close neighbors here to the north. First of all, they have to have an APHIS permit. An APHIS permit is very general. It just allows them to export seeds. There's really no specifications or requirements as far as the germination is concerned. A germination test is performed on the seed. Also, noxious weeds are defined by the state or the province to be considered harmful to agriculture. And the only other thing that's reported is if there's other crop seeds in excess of 5%, which is quite a bit of other crop seeds. So you say, where are these other crop seeds coming from? As Gary mentioned, there are no labeled pesticides, and that includes herbicides. So the ground that that's planted on, as Michael Luce in my program, who's here, we found oat seeds, sunflower, buckwheat, a number of different contaminant other crop seeds are already present in them. And that's something that's really not desirable. So anyway, we are in a point right now of just basically of having seeds imported to U.S. in particular to New York State for the production of this crop. Canada has some standards. I want to talk about that. They have a certification. We're familiar with seed certification here, but theirs is a little different. They have certification level 1, number 1, or number 2. So what is the criteria for that? So if it's a certified number 1, the seed lot would have to be over 85% germination. It'd have to have 3 or less weed seeds present in a 25-gram sample, and then less than one or less crop seeds. So 25 grams, it's about a shot full, so I think everybody can understand that volume of measurement of what that is. So those are the criteria for number 1. If it fails, the seed lot either below germination, or if there's more weed seeds present, then the next category is their number 2. In that case, the germination needs to be 70% or higher, and then higher threshold in the number of weed seeds and the other crop seeds would be present. So we have 17 lots out here. I should say 17 varieties, but I think really the seed lot level of a variety, as each lot can vary from one another within the same variety. But of the data that we've collected so far, Michael in my laboratory, only 30% of those would have greater than 85% germination, and only about half of them over 70%. So you can see the quality of the seed that we're importing here can be very variable, and we're very concerned about that. So having a good quality seed is very important to get it started on the right foot. In communication with one of the Canadian seed companies, again, because what even they call their certified is not exactly what we are defined in. They are going to, based on our conversations, actually put on the percent germination and the 1,000 seed weight. So again, things that we're used to on our seed tags, they do not require that, but since they are exporting, that's something that they can add. So I think that will be helpful for next year as we look forward. So again, we're focused right now on just doing these standard routine tests, following standardized procedures. Any seed testing laboratory in the United States or Canada would be following the same rules. But from there, we're going to move forward in looking at seed quality, the seed vigor aspects. Can we develop a practical seed vigor test? Especially as Jamie's talking about, under a good soil condition, you get a good stand. Under a cold, wet condition, the stand is reduced over 50%. So we need to better understand seed quality. Are there more high-quality seed lots, bigger seed lots? We need to be able to identify that. The standard germination test simply does not have the power to resolve seed vigor. And the other aspect is we're starting off with a fairly weak seed to begin with. Once they get established and growing, then they grow pretty vigorously, as we can see out here. But it's that very early germination, early seedling established. Those are the critical stages of getting them up and growing out of the ground. So we're interested in kind of the seed technology tools that we're developing really for small seeded vegetables and also for organic production of seed enhancements to try to enhance, to stimulate that early seedling growth. But also, as we do not have any chemical seed treatments that we can use to control fungal diseases, what can we do, kind of, again, go into the organic toolbox and see can we use that and apply those as seed treatments. So I think for sake of time, if there's any questions at this time?
Is your germination rates for these posted somewhere?
Not at this time, but we will be doing that. Is we're collating a lot of information right now in the field, stand establishment, and other growth parameters.
So for all the postings, has it got to go through a whole process before you're able to post it? So this is like in the fall, or can you post notes as you go?
I'll let Chris handle that one.
Yeah, so the question was, can we post notes as we go? And yes, we can. I think that, incomplete data is not useful. So I think that, if you don't have all the germ rates from all the seed lots, it's probably not useful to post it yet. But those will be posted. We do have a blog that Jamie Cummins is in charge of, and she'll be, Jamie Crawford. There's too many Jamies. And everything will be posted on the website, the Cornell Hemp website. And so that will go up as soon as possible.
The only trick is we're planning for next year.
Right.
So even some data, right, would be helpful, as opposed to waiting for if it has to go through a publication process, which I understand has to happen for the official stuff, but it'd be nice if there was like an informal
updates on what we're finding.
It's time to plan for next year, right?
Yeah, and I
We'd
think
be happy to have a personal conversation rather than posting things irrevocably before they're ready.
Thank you.
That's exactly what I'm saying, and sort of that's why, today while we're here, I'll hand the microphone off to Jamie in a sec, but, the hope is that we'll wander around and you'll actually be able to talk to the folks that have those data and get that information, as preliminary data. As soon as you post something, someone will download it, and then they won't have the final version, so that's a bit of a nervousness about posting.
I got that. Thanks.
And I also want to say you need to be a little bit careful because seed lot data is not the same as variety data. So just because, we got 2 seed lots in our variety trial that were just awful, but it was because they were old seed lots. It doesn't say anything about those varieties in particular, so we need to be careful about that as well.
Thank you.
Chris, I have a question for Larry going back. Sorry, not Larry. Alan, you were talking about seed enhancements. You were talking about something like P22? The microbial thing?
Okay, so the question is what are we calling seed enhancements? And seed enhancements is kind of a general term, which could be the seed treatments, could be a beneficial seed treatment such as trichoderma, would be as a seed treatment to control soil-borne pathogens, things like that. But we also have what we call biostimulants, which are actually different natural plant materials to actually enhance the germination rate. And these two can kind of go in concert together. So the ultimate goal here is to protect, but also to enhance the early germination and stand establishment. Good question and clarification of that.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Were you able to test germ rates for different seeding depths, soil temperatures, and moisture contents? Or was it, let's say?
The question is on seeding depth, and I'll let Larry as he's kind of in charge of the Geneva trial.
Right, so I think because we have these same varieties planted on 6 different sites, we'll get an idea of that consistency by variety across the 6 different sites, 4 reps on each site. So I think we have pretty good replication of that.
salad greens, is that being grown hydroponic?
The ones that I've seen are not grown hydroponic. They're grown in soil mix. Is that what you've seen as well?
Yeah, I think what we're curious about is I think the first question would be what's the fertility approach to that? And if it's going to be organic inside of the greenhouse, that takes a little bit of finesse to get those fertility levels where they need to be, particularly around some nitrogen issues where nitrogen is not available in the soluble form very easily oftentimes for organic production. Conventional would be a lot easier.
Are the Canadians doing much? Yeah. I don't know.
From the folks I've talked to, everything is for seed, predominantly for seed and some fiber, not greens. All right, so Peter, did you have anything you wanted to add before I pass it on to Jackie? Okay, so Jackie.
The only thing, are there any comments from the field, from farms that you guys have visited? Right. Do you want to draw?
Weed control is an issue. It's tough to find the plants in some of these fields. Every grass and broadleaf you can find is there.
Is anybody doing? Just throw in on that topic is that Kevin has been taking weed counts in the just general weed pressure in the various trials, and it's directly correlated to that initial stand. So as a cultural practice, getting a good initial stand is very good competition against the weeds.
These look very good. I showed up today and saw these. I'm like, wow, that's what it's supposed to look like?
So that was Mike and Gary saying that weed control is definitely an issue, and we've seen that in some sites as well. And I encourage everyone, now that you know sort of who does what, that when we begin to walk around, you can ask folks more questions. So Jackie from the New York State Department of Ag Markets.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everyone. It's very exciting for us to get out of the office and come out and see the crop in production, and we're very excited about the potential here for this crop as something emerging for New York State growers. And very thankful to Cornell, Larry, Chris, and the CCE team for helping us in this area. And also, I'd be remiss if I did not mention our appreciation to SUNY Morrisville, who really led the way in a lot of what is going on now that they were growing last year, so we have a little bit of history, well, not much. I'm the regulator that's here, or representing the regulatory facet of this. This has been in a very cumbersome, difficult area to navigate, and I also have to take the time to thank the Ag and Markets team, because while I represent the Commissioner's office and the Governor, I've got a great group of people, and the Commissioner has a great group of people behind him and working on this. Tim Sweeney is here, who's a special assistant who works is now targeting industrial hemp. Many of you know Chris Logue, our division director of plant industry. He is up to here in it. And then absolutely, while you don't see them, they're very essential, and that is our counsel's office. To start out, we all need to know that the 2014 Federal Farm Bill provides or gives authority to state departments of agriculture and educational institutions to conduct agricultural research projects on industrial hemp. And I have to emphasize the word research. New York State in the legislature and the governor signed a couple pieces of legislation putting laws into place that allowed us to move forward with pilot programs that allow us to grow, process, and sell products from those research projects. And much of what you've heard here this morning is our partnership with Cornell, initially with the $400,000 to do these preliminary research trials, but then to take it out in the field and start gathering some agronomic data on farms across New York. I have to emphasize that it is the grower's responsibility to identify a seed source. International seed must be obtained through a DEA authorized source. At the governor's direction, the department is working towards getting a DEA permit where we will be able, once it's in place, to facilitate seed coming into the state from international sources. We are in the process of that. We have been in the process for quite a while on that. And we're hopeful to get that in place so that we can go out with a solicitation, hopefully towards the fall, with enough time that farmers that are interested, farmers and businesses that are interested in doing a research project can identify a seed source, and then we would work with them to facilitate it getting to the farms and to the businesses. So we are in the process of that. Stay tuned. As I said, we're hoping to do a solicitation or to look for some more research projects this fall. On the seed front, we are focusing our efforts internally on the need for good, viable seed. You've heard a lot of conversations about that here this morning. We're looking at our seed lab to maybe run some tests on some of those things that Alan has mentioned as far as germination, inert, etc. We're also looking, and was one of the initiatives underway, it'll take us a little time, but a seed certification program in New York State in this area. One of the big things, and I forgot to mention it, is this program initially started out with 10 sites that were authorized by state law. And we as an agency decided to start out with educational institutions with those 10, and had 4 of those institutions come forward, Cornell being one. And then we looked to the tremendous interest in getting growers involved and businesses involved. We expanded those 10 to private businesses and farms. The governor and state of the state came out and said, no, we're opening this up. We need to be growing, looking at this crop beyond 10 sites. So we do have the ability to expand the program and and look at other research projects. We have a working, we also announced an industrial hemp working group, which is coming together. We hope to have discussions about where the areas of need are in the research arena so that they can help guide the agency as to what kind of projects we look for. And we're also on the processing end looking for a rolling kind of application. That's what we're considering now, a rolling application for processors versus a certain time frame where with the grower ones, you'll have an application period. We're also investigating just a processor license just to know where the processors are, where the potential markets are for the product, so that they are on our radar screen. There's also we've been partnering with Empire State Development. They've come out with processing grants up to $500,000 for processing grants. And we're also working, having some initial conversations with the Department of Health with respect to any of the food supplement area. So that's ongoing, having some conversations there. I think that is, also our regulations that are in place currently, because the program started out with educational institutions, our regulations that are on the books solely pertain to educational institutions. The other entities that are involved in this program have been operating under department guidance and partnership agreements with the agency. We are looking to move that arena into some kind of regulatory framework. And while we're looking at the regulations, we are trying to minimize them. So we initially came out with a program that had a lot of checks, checking the boxes, making sure. I think we're feeling much more comfortable with the program, and so we would be potentially making regulatory changes that lightened up on the regulations that are in place, and also bringing putting those guidance into regulations. And that's really for the protection of everyone involved in this county. It's still a Schedule I drug, so everyone needs to keep that at the top of their mind when they're exploring it. So I think that's it. Tim, did I miss anything?
Just the guidance document is being updated, and that should be released along with the new application period.
Is that still targeted for them in August? The release of that information?
I think what we're waiting, we're somewhat sitting tight because we'd like to get the DEA permits. That's really where we are as an agency. We're trying to get the DEA permit. We have communication. Probably it has been 2 weeks. We got to be a little, don't want to hound them too much. It's a fine line. It's a very fine line. So we're navigating it. We are very diligent. I mean, this is coming from the top. This is something that the agency is involved in a very big way. But it is complicated, and I think we've done a pretty good job so far. Everybody involved. It's been a huge undertaking.
You guys have been awesome. I mean, I love it. It's one of the best partnerships. Can you give us a little bit on, you're going to have a large volume of testing with this 2,000 acres in there. Can you give us a little bit on the state of readiness when you start taking our THC tests?
I would have, unfortunately, I don't have Chris here with me, but I know he has a plan. I think some of it's going to be, maybe, I don't know if I should even venture there, but I think it has to do with, the source of seed and comfort level there. We have to make sure, that's another issue that we're working through, is lab capacity in the state. That is a huge issue.
That's what I was wondering.
And we are, all I can say is we're aware of that. We are working every day on that issue, the capability for the regulatory agency to pull our regulatory samples. And then you have the whole kind of service sector that's out there, that growers that want to have their crop tested. And that's a whole nother arena. So we're aware of it. THC.
Is it okay to send it out of state?
You cannot send it out of state. That's the, moving across state lines.
All across state lines, whatever you do.
Do all of that at your own risk.
Just don't do it.
Just to answer your question a little bit, Mark, we do have cooperation with our Institute of Biotechnology on the Ithaca campus to test all the samples from the 6 trials, all 17 varieties, for the full cannabinoid spectrum of compounds. And then, again, in talking with Chris Loeb, because ANCA is a certified cultivar in Canada, our concerns about that are a little bit less.
Gotcha.
You test only the cannabinoid profiles, or you test flavonoid profiles as well?
Oh, that's a good question. What is it?
So I've been the one that's been talking to Josh Rose, who is the head of our metabolomics facilities at Cornell. He's a plant biologist in the School of Plant Sciences, and he said that to start with, they're planning to do the cannabidiol panel. So more than just the CBDs, a more broad panel, because a lot of folks are going to want to know, what all is available. And that's not a regulatory issue. That's just an informational component. And then once we determine based on standards how well we can do, then we'll be able to provide a better idea of the breadth of testing that can be done. And actually, there'll actually also be a protocol for exactly how the samples are collected in the field for that testing. And our protocol will be identical to that that Ag and Markets is using.
And I know Chris and his team are working, I know with Wadsworth, Department of Health Wadsworth. We had a conversation with Chris Smart here as to how to achieve that consistency. We have participated and gone to other parts of the country to see how the samples should be taken. Once that protocol is determined, we will then be doing outreach to our hort inspectors, a few key hort inspectors that will be responsible for pulling those samples. Anything else? Okay, thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Do you have any expectations at the federal level for the next farm bill?
No, I mean, I think it's on our, it's on our radar screen. It's definitely, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but the governor's aware, this commissioner's very aware of this issue, and we understand that there's at least a foot in the door in the farm bill with industrial hemp, so.
But there is a bill introduced in Congress now to relax some of the regulations, right?
That made me think of something. The whole thing we're working under doesn't sunset with the 2014, right? It doesn't have to be reauthorized, or does it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
We'll
either,
have to
now that I
check, we'll
think
have to
about
check
it.
that.
Wow.
We're just starting, I mean, we're starting to look at, as a whole, as an agency at the Farm Bill and starting to have discussions and listening sessions. We're starting to want to hear from folks. So, point person on, I would guess, on federal Farm Bill, who I work closely with, it's in the Commissioner's office, would that be Jeff Palmer.
So what we would love to do now is have everyone just sort of go out and wander through the field. If you have questions on seed for Alan, on diseases for Gary and his team, the Mikes and Janice, have been out in the field, so you can get ideas from them. So please just interact with us, ask us any questions you have, and enjoy the hemp. I'm glad you'll laugh. Enjoy the hemp.
And there's still like Jamie or Emilia is around. What's happened more often with them?
But once it starts flowering, that's about it. Yeah. We're done.
Oh, okay.
So that shuts all the energy. At least what people are told.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.